family, welcome to Praise Accelerates Grace with Shanae Blackway. I am your host, the Shanae Blackway, and I am excited. Most importantly, I am looking forward to be part of a journey and a testimony that has definitely inspired me on my worst days. And I could not wait to share this with you guys. And today we have an amazing guest. We have my sister, my headache most days, but she has definitely been one of the most vital parts of my journey. And when I say this, I mean this physically, spiritually, but most important, financially on some cases. This is my big sister from another mother, Nolene Williams. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me, Shanae.
So, to anyone that might not know who we are or how we have met, just briefly maybe tell us who you are and what our relationship is.
So I'm Nolene Williams. I'm 39 years of age. A mom to two amazing kids who I often refer to as my pigeon pair, young adults that they are now. I think our relationship is just, it's been so phenomenal, and it's really just been such a God-guided journey. For me, one of the key things is that God made us meet intentionally for your journey, and He was just so on time. I am a cancer survivor. I won't go into the detail yet of how many times, but I am a cancer survivor, currently also fighting a journey, but really just the grace of God that we still stand.
And again, thank you so much for going through this journey with me, but also investing so much time and effort into coming here today. Like you have mentioned, you are currently still in the journey, and like many cancer survivors, you know, the road is unpredictable. But today I want to share a story with you that through all the trials and tribulations, we want to speak about our mental health and your mindset. And I believe that Nolene is not only the perfect guest, but she will then tell her story in a way that many might not have heard it before, but can definitely be inspired and can definitely look back on their own lives and their own journeys with cancer and maybe learn a few things. I know that you have the amazing tools, right? And yours started from a very young age. Can we go into your first health complication? Let's call it that.
The first complication.
Yeah, the first health complication.
My first experience with cancer at the time, even though I didn't know that it was cancer, was when I was 16 years old. So I had a carotid body tumor, and hence I've got a nice big scar in my neck, which people often think someone may have stabbed me or I stabbed someone. I'm not ghetto like that. You'll cut that out. So at 16 years old, I had a carotid body tumor just after removing my tonsils. By the grace of God, I survived that. At the age of 22, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And I think that in my adulthood was starting to realize that this is my journey with cancer. And at the age of 22, diagnosed, my daughter was 2 years old at the time, turning 3. So just starting that journey with cancer, I think that's when I came to the realization that this is cancer. Because at 16, my parents shielded me from the reality of what it was, or perhaps even just for them, they didn't understand the complexities of what we were dealing with at the age of 16.
So you mentioned a lot of big words, and we obviously make light of this most
days.
We have all the alphabets, right, amongst our crews. And, you know, I know that you go through your own journey, and like you said, you mentioned you were 16 and the second time was 22. At that point, you had become a parent yourself, right? And in those moments when you were diagnosed with the fear, obviously at 22, you had something to lose. At 16, we are so oblivious, right? And we don't have all the answers. Like you said, you were not even aware of the severity of your situation. You just knew that your parents said that you needed surgery, if I'm correct. So when it comes to during the fear and that uncertainty with your daughter, what was the one thing that gave you hope when you were diagnosed for the second time at 22 years old?
Hope comes from, when you've journeyed with hope for so many years, when I look back now, I always ask myself, what was that one thing that really kept me going? And I have to go back to my journals to really understand, because it's been so many years. And it was just the understanding that one day God would make me see the beauty of my child's life. When you're diagnosed with a brain tumor, and when you hear cancer, you think it's a death sentence, right? As often we do. And the one thing, my conversation with God and with my doctor, even to this day, is that I will raise my kids. And at the age of 18, I can say that hope has really been kept alive.
You speak about being kept alive. Can you just mention one specific thing that you still look back at, like a one moment that you still look back and you're like, that was such an inspiring moment, even through the treatments, right? Because like you said, we're going to get into that, like the different forms of cancer that you've had over the years, but also the treatments obviously are different. But like that one thing that throughout your journey you have always looked back on and said, yeah, that was an inspiring moment through the darkest times.
For me, at the age that I was, obviously I was married already at that time. The relationship with my mom and my dad was, as it is, we come from cultural families, so we don't hear things like, I love you. We don't experience the hugs. And I remember on one of my hardest days, and to this day, if I close my eyes, I can visualize that moment. I was having such a hard day, and my mom came and hugged me and said she loved me. I can't forget that, because it was just such a pivotal moment, and it inspired me because it made me realize that's the kind of mom that I want to consistently be to my kids, and not just in the heart.
And there you have it again, family, the support and the love and the efforts that we show as someone that is currently witnessing your loved one going through cancer. Sometimes you wonder, how can I assist them, right? And it's that simple hug or that simple I love you that can change the entire trajectory of their life, right? So cancer is not easy. Let's not sugarcoat it, right? Many of us struggle with just hearing someone else being diagnosed. And so many give up even before they are told that they have cancer. Now, I know that your story is not only one of the most inspiring, but it is years and years of struggle, years and years of challenges. But you are here to tell that story, and that is only by the grace of God. So today we are not only praising God for your life, but we are praising God for the opportunities that you now get to witness. But let's go back, right? So 16, 22, you had all these big names for cancer. Let's talk about the different diagnoses that you had faced, or your journey with your walk to cancer. You did mention that you are currently still going through treatment. Can you just tell us more about your journey, briefly, about just for the viewers that's watching and obviously seeing this for the first time and not really understanding your story?
So it's going to be a Google search or ChatGPT, depending on your age group. But like we said, at 16, I had the carotid body tumor. At 22, I had a meningioma, which I had opted to not have removed. So I only had radiation and lots of steroids. Then at the age of 27, when my son was 4 months old, I suffered 29 spinal tumors. So the brain tumor had caused metastases, which you would understand, given your journey as well. That was 27. Then I had a sacrococcygeal chordoma. This is where ChatGPT will help you a lot. And this was really just, I think this was probably one of the most devastating ones, but it was in 2019. Spent 6 months in and out of hospital, really didn't think we were going to make it. And it was one of those moments where even the doctor said to me, this is it, but God happened. And so that was, I think that was the devastating one, and the one that was probably the most complex. Then in 2021, a paraganglioma, and 3 months ago, another one, which I had removed. So I'm recovering from brain surgery at the moment, and as you know, also undergoing radiation.
First of all, I need to give you a round of applause. Firstly, because she just had brain radiation, a brain surgery, brain surgery, and this is such an amazing time for us. And you guys might be surprised that we explain or we describe our journey as amazing. And Nolene has not only been someone that has taught me how to handle certain situations, but she has also been one that has learned from my journey. You know, sometimes we take for granted how other people's journeys can impact our lives, right? And if you can just briefly, you know, you brush over it so no, she always downplays everything that she's been through. And again, we are not here to scare anyone, but we just want to speak about the severity of when the doctor said it doesn't look good. Like what were they using? What were the terms that they were using that made you realize that this is very serious this time around?
Yeah, I think the first time when you get your scans, and you'd be familiar with this, and they say to you, don't try and be a Google doctor, then you know that's that first one where it says your life expectancy is very short. So my doctor would often say that to me, and that makes me realize that, I mean, I've got a very rare and unique condition, so that we've come to realize. But like you say, there's a lot of terms that they use, even when I can say these things right now. Initially, it was so scary. And so when you read your scans, you do get afraid as a person. You do become scared. Your faith is very, very shaken. And so often your doctors would not, we don't have the same relationship with God. They obviously see a lot of cancer patients. So when I'm saying to my doctor that I hear what you're saying, this is very scary, you only have 5 months to live, I hear you, but I can't accept it because my journey with God is different. And so for me, you know, when you say what are the words that the doctors would use, it's you only have 5 months to live, and we need to call in someone to come and see you to guide you through are your wills and all of your policies and stuff in order, right? And those things are very scary. I think not for me, because I do not fear death, but for my children. And so for me, the goal is I need to raise my kids, and I need to raise them well. And when that is done, I'll be fine. But until such a time, the words that the doctors say, it's just going to be the words. And like you say, this is where mindset is so important, right? Because am I going to internalize it, or am I going to hear what they say and just say, but God, we have an agreement.
First of all, when you spoke about you only have 5 months left, you're sitting here today, right? You said 3 months ago you had a reoccurrence. Can we just clarify when this diagnosis was given to you with the 5 months life expectancy?
So the 5 months was in 2019.
Wow.
Yeah. That was, I was just explaining to someone that it was probably one of the years that in all my journey that it really made me realize that God is so real. I started that year with a vision board saying that I am traveling to Spain later that year. I love international travel. In Feb, I was diagnosed and spent 6 months in and out of hospital. And 2 months after everything was said and done, I reported in Barcelona. So God is real, you know, and I think for so many times, and this is why our stories matter, because people get diagnoses and you just internalize it so much.
Yes.
You marinate it, you make it a part of your life, and you don't realize that maybe it's just time to take it to God in prayer. But also, how do you test your faith if you're not faced with an obstacle? And so for me, because we've defied the odds, we are the living testimonies, and we have to tell these stories so people can understand that God is real.
So obviously you're human, right?
Yes.
You mentioned that at the time of the 5 months, it was in 2019, you did mention that both your daughter and your son was born at that time. Obviously, now in hindsight, you can speak about how important it is to internalize these things and not internalize certain things. But at that moment, when you heard that news that, listen, you don't have a lot of time left, like that was obviously the last thing you would hear, because as many survivors know and people that are diagnosed, after that diagnosis, it's a blur, right? So can you remember that date when the doctor uttered that words about you having terminal cancer at that point, according to the doctor? Can you remember what you felt in that moment, or just how, obviously it had to be gut-wrenching, but can you just tell us and explain and go through the day of how you felt after that diagnosis?
It was very hard. It was in March of 2019. And so the hospital that I went to, they send you there if you like a really complicated case where you've got 13 professors looking after you. And I remember the doctors standing around my bed and them saying, this is really like a terminal diagnosis that you've received, so we'll be sending someone in to come and speak to you. The next morning, the lady came and I said to her, and you know, this hospital was so nice because you're in a private room. They really give you the space to deal with what it is that you're going through. And I said to her, I just want you to leave me in the darkness. And so my curtain, and she's like, open the curtains, and the nurses are coming, you have to open the curtains. And I said, I just wanted to feel the darkness. And the reason why, and I think it was an important part of the journey that I needed to experience, even though I said this is a part that I wouldn't want to cover. My late husband died of suicide. So when I experienced that day, oh man. So when I experienced that day of darkness, I realized why mental health is so important. And you would know we connected because I keep on saying to you, it's not about the cancer, it's about your mindset. And so when I experienced that one day of darkness, I could give my late husband so much forgiveness for leaving me with 2 young kids and, you know, knowing what my health was like. But experiencing that day made me realize that even when God is real, the darkness can still come. And it's literally, you have to have a moment where you're just gonna snap out of it. And so for me, I had to go through that day so that the next morning I could snap out of it. And it was when my mom came in and she said, but your policies are in order. This is the problem when you're married. Your policies are in order, your children will be fine. And I'm like, but that's not the point.
Yeah.
I want to live for my children. And I snapped out of it. But I needed to go through that darkness. And it gave me so much grace to understand that irrespective of the obstacle or what you're going through, and God being real doesn't take the darkness away. It will still come, but it is your mindset that's literally going to save you. And for me, that's literally the reason why I still stand.
And again, viewers, at this moment, I just need to pause, right? So as much as she's so modest when it comes to her journey, and I believe that this is one of the greatest stories that I've heard. Nolene is not only a survivor of cancer, which I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're on the 5th one at this point, yeah. So, and I say this because she never wants me to mention it, but I want people to see that your first diagnosis cannot take you out. Your second diagnosis does not have to take you out. Your third diagnosis does not have to take you out. Your 4th diagnosis does not have to take you out, because here you are 2 months after you basically had learned that you've just been diagnosed again with a reoccurrence. So what happens is, so many times we are so focused on what could go wrong that we don't use those moments and we allow ourselves to heal. And that is one of the best things, I think, with your journey. You mentioned very briefly that unfortunately you lost your husband to suicide, right? We're not going to go into that today, but I must mention that there are so many things that as family we sometimes take for granted, right? Not thinking that orphaning 2 children under the age of 10 could have such a huge impact on their lives in the future. Now, Nolene focuses not only on making sure that people are fine, because she's been through so much, she also focuses on your support structure, right? So many times when you are unsure, right, and you said you had that day where you just gave yourself the grace to say, I need to snap out of this tomorrow. You gave yourself 24 hours. And when you snapped out of it, and after the conversation, obviously, with your mom, can you just tell me, what was the one thing that you spoke about your children and stuff like that, but what was the one thing that after you have learned what your husband, you got an inkling for 24 hours of what your husband had been going through for such a long time? What was the one thing that kept you inspired maybe through that journey?
For me, the one thing that I learned from that, and I always say this to people when I coach on mental health, is the same grace, patience, and kindness that we have for ourselves, we have to have for others. And it keeps me inspired and it keeps me going, because life is a journey of grace, right? And it is a journey of being kind to yourself and to those around you. And, you know, hence we speak with the inner voice, because you just don't know what someone else is going through. And my kindness may just be the saving grace that they need that day. And so for me, from that journey, that's the one thing that I took with as my wisdom snippet for life, that I share with mentees and people that I journey with.
I think just obviously you have been through a tremendous amount of treatments, and obviously that should have had an impact in your life. So just briefly telling us, like, you know, the things that you feel that you could have done before, or that you know you could have done before, and how this has impacted your life. Obviously, again, for educational purposes, we need to make sure that when you do go through treatments, you know maybe what to expect and what to not be too alarmed about. And I think Nolene just needs to describe what your life has been like since you've been through all of this.
Oh, spasms. It's been spasms.
Yeah.
I think for me, one of the things that one learns very quickly is, and I'll share this just so that viewers can also understand, that we probably live in a judgmental society that we never knew we were a part of. So when I had my brain tumor, I was put on steroids. You know what steroids are like. I picked up a significant amount of weight. And I remember just one day wanting to have almost like a normal day with my daughter in the park. And, you know, I'd get people look at me, you don't like how I look, like, oh, can't you just lose some weight? And after that day, I was just like, I'm not going out again. I can't do this. But then I realized that I was part of that judgmental society. Ooh. And it taught me so much about just being kinder to people, because you don't know what the underlying conditions are. In a recent experience as well, I'm currently on disability, as you know. I'd last been at the office in December. I went to visit my colleagues, and one of my colleagues saw me and said, oh my word, you've gained so much weight. I'm like, girl, I'm popping tablets to stay alive, you know? Yeah. I've just had brain surgery. And I think sometimes we say things to have conversation with people, but sometimes it's just, you have to, firstly think, so that you're not part of that judgmental society, and also just have the kindness to say that someone may be going through something deeper than my eye can see. So let me be selective with the words that I express for the sake of conversation.
And again, education is so important. Having self-awareness during these times, because so many people know what you go through and they know how difficult cancer is. And a little joke can literally put that person in a space that they do not belong. And that is in a space of doubt. That is in a space of having a lower self-esteem than what would expect if you are not fighting cancer, because you lose so much when you are going through cancer. Now, we speak about how many things you lose in your body. Nolene has so many things that she has been through, but I think one vital story that I would love for you to tell us is, what part of your body you feel was mostly impacted by your journey with cancer?
Gaining the screws in my spine.
Oh. Tell us about that one.
So I think for me, definitely my spine, the most impacted. It was, and even when I look back at the journey, and even the one that I've just gone through, because my kids are so big now. When my son was 4 months old, you know, that's the beginning stages of their life. So you breastfeed and all of that. And I remember sitting on the bed and breastfeeding my son, and my legs just went numb. I was rushed to hospital, and obviously next minute I woke up after 11.5-hour operation because of the metastases. And seeing my son for the first time was so hard because he was a breastfed baby and he couldn't come near me. I needed to learn how to walk. And when I saw my scan, I was shocked. And I've got a colleague at work that refers to me as the robot lady.
You are my iron lady.
Yes, the iron lady. But I think one of the things, everything in my life that's happened, I always think, what's the thing that I'm going to learn to appreciate from it? For many years, I could not wear heels. I was, what was pumps was in fashion at one point in time.
Ni pumps, ni?
Yes, girl, pumps. So for me, being able to wear heels, I have such an appreciation for something like that. And so my spine, though significantly impacted, the fact that I can walk is nothing short of a miracle. So, and for that alone, I have so much, there's so much gratitude in the journey. In the morning when I wake up and walk to my kitchen to make my own cup of tea, believe me, before I complain, I'm definitely going to first give thanks for the fact that I can walk.
Amen.
Amen.
And viewers, sometimes we look at our journeys and we question why we are here. If you have ever doubted your existence, if you've ever questioned why God had placed you on this earth, just know that you have not only been such an amazing friend during my toughest time, but you have also been a supportive aunt to my daughter. You have brought a newfound hope to my family, because as you know, as someone that has no survivors in my family from cancer, here is someone that could sit here and tell us that I have done this not once, not twice, not thrice, but 5 times. And I believe that you are healed, and we believe that this would be the end of the cancer journey physically for you. Mentally, you still need to help so many people, and Nolene has been on this journey with me, but most importantly, she has definitely also done something for so many people. She has done such amazing things for so many families by just simply sharing her story, whether it be on social media platforms, mentioning social media platforms. Again, do not forget to follow, subscribe, and definitely interact with our social media platforms, which we'll have down below. So in closing, I just want to thank you for making the time. I feel like there is so much that we have to unpack. I feel like we need to do so much more when it comes to your story, and I believe that there would be time, but for now, it is not goodbye, it is see you soon. Thank you for watching Praise Accelerates Grace with Shanae Blackway. Nolene, my sister, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your efforts. May God continue blessing your family. May you continue inspiring others. From myself and the team, I would like to wish you guys an amazing day and all of the best. Thank you so much for watching. Love you guys. Bye.